Welcome back to the collective. It's your boy Kaiser. I'm here with probably the GOAT coach, in my opinion, Mr. Scott MEDERIOS. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you getting on and telling people about your story, man. It's all the because what I met you in like sixth grade, maybe flag football. So like I was like 7 years old.
Yeah.
So 18 years I've known him. He's been my coach ever since, and now, obviously, as I'm an adult, I'm not here anymore. But it's kind of like I appreciate you letting me do this and interviewing you and getting a more in-depth kind of conversation, because we've had many conversations over the years.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But like this is on more of a personal level, one-on-one. You know what I mean? Yep. But what's going on with you, man?
Well, I mean, next year will be year 30 teaching.
That's crazy.
And last year was the first year I didn't coach anything. Like since I was, I think, 21, every year I've coached at least one sport. And so last year without coaching anything is completely different. You know,
your routine was kind of off a little bit.
Yeah, I'd come home and I'd look around. I'm like, what do teachers do after that?
Because you guys get out at like 3:00, right?
Yeah, we get out at 2:50, and and I'd get home and look around, and but it was nice though, because I didn't have the stress, because I like to compete, right?
Oh, for sure.
I coach to compete, and so it's hard to turn that off, but it's been nice, coming home and relaxing a little bit, and that kind of thing. But I definitely miss it. But in my job, I tell my kids day one, I will teach you guys just like I coach. It's
for
the
sure.
Same thing. So my classes are just like coaching a team. So
I feel like you've always had that kind of mantra about it, though, because you're always a team aspect kind of person, even if like weightlifting, because that's where you teach. You always have a pair, but you always like your spotter needs to be on you just in case. You know what I mean? Oh, but that's the mentality that I like that you always bring for teaching. So
you're exactly right. I mean that's what you do is you push the things that are important to you, and you get an opportunity, you get a little bit of a stage, right? To push the messages. And if I was to go in there and just teach them weight training, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Exactly.
Right? So you try to get little messages in there, and little tidbits of life things that you can hopefully pass on to them, and even if you throw 10, 20 at them a semester, just one or two stick, you're ahead of the game. So I really enjoy it. I've never woke up and go, oh God, I gotta go to work.
I know you've always had a good smile on your face every morning that we've always gone into class, or even just like going to a tournament. You're always brighten up and early, like let's get the day going, let's kick some ass. So
exactly.
And it's very nice. It's refreshing whenever I was growing up and going to, because even if I didn't have your class first period, I go in and hang out with you for a little bit, and then go to school the rest of the day. So I know that in high school I tried to have at least one of your classes every year, even if I was a TA.
Oh yeah, I had you all the way through.
So just so I could be like, hey, I want this energy throughout my day, and it was always, that was one thing that I always noticed with Pierce too, was he always was in a happy mood. Like I've never seen you or him really in a down mood.
Right. And we have those moments, but you're right. It could, because it's a choice, right? I mean, you can choose to be that guy that's always disgruntled about something and looking for something to complain about, or you can choose to be the guy that sees the bright side of things.
For sure.
And so that's and don't get me wrong, I'm not always like that. It's sometimes you got to try, right? Sometimes you got to push to be like that, but because of being around the kid, like for instance, teaching wise, I have my degree, so I could do administration, but I didn't get into it to be around adults. I wanted to teach, I wanted to coach, I wanted to stay in that, and so that approach and that and being positive and being somebody to brighten up the room. I look for that guy too, right?
Yep.
And you have students like that do that for you, because you're gonna have your rough days. There's a couple people that I've met in my life that. Do you remember Miller, Coach Miller?
Coach Miller.
His son wrestled a little bit. But he went on a lot of. I think he got his son's a little bit older than you though.
What year did his son graduate?
You might have missed him just barely, and the only reason Pierce knows him is because of the.
He was around the room a
Can-
little
yeah,
bit longer,
yeah.
so
But he was one of those guys that was just always up, and you're like, God, I like that guy. I got to pick up some of that. So
I know that around my time frame of being in high school, around the wrestling team was Goodell. He always had a smile on his face, and it was just
constantly.
infectious.
It is.
Infectious.
Yeah.
And it's honestly crazy because, like, I don't know how you can be happy like that all the time, any time of the day.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but it's a good thing to have around.
Yeah, so I got to see him last year quite a bit because he was a recruiter at the high school, and he ran an ROTC class.
That's cool,
and
though.
So every day he'd walk in with that smile that you're talking about. He's like, MEDERIOS, give you a big. If you shook his hand, he's like, "Give me, what are you doing? Give me a hug." So
he's got a bear grip, dude. It's crazy.
He's huge now.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
I show kids the picture of him on the ceiling with your guys' senior picture because I have your guys' senior picture up on my roof.
Oh,
You've been in
okay.
my office since I've.
It's been a long time since I've been in your
So
office.
you know that
but-
team banner that you guys had?
Yep.
That huge one. So I have that on my roof in my
Okay.
office. And so
I bet your room just still looks the exact same.
Oh
huh?
yeah, I got a billion pictures up, and
Yep.
everybody signs the roof, and everybody comes in. When can I sign that? Like, you got to be a senior. First it was wrestlers. The kids just started flipping, autographing the roof in there. But it looks like a giant yearbook. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
And administration loves it. They come in and they're like, I love coming in here and checking all this out. So.
Well, it's because your office is just filled with a lot of blood, a lot of sweat,
Oh, yeah.
and then just a lot of like memorabilia.
Yep.
Like I feel like because you told me you have 2 more years of teaching that you're gonna do.
Yes.
How is that gonna be for you when you have to hang that up? You think?
God, that's gonna be rough. I think really because you always feel like you have these messages to get out, and I love watching inspirational anything, right? Because it just, I mean, it's a feel good, right? It makes you feel good
For sure.
And so you get all these messages that you want to get across, and most of it is stuff like you wish you knew at that age, right? And you're trying to pass it on to them. And most of them are like, a lot of them don't want to hear it or not listening, but every once in a while you get something across to them that's really important and it sticks to them, right? And then you don't even realize, like, it's one of my first years teaching. I was on the base my very first year.
Okay.
Teaching PE, and had this kid in there and didn't really have any extra relationship with him at all, and I treated him like any other kid, right? And at when he moved before the school year was out. His mom sent me this big old letter and card thanking me and I have no idea
Just
what
for you doing your job kind of thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
I was like, well, I didn't do anything extra or special, and so a lot of times you don't get it, right? You don't see that and so that's what's cool about that job. Is my job is you get those moments, where you touch people and you don't even find out and really figure it out till later, But I thought that was cool, and so you always got to remember, that even that super quiet kid or somebody like that, you might be you might be their favorite, and you don't even
For sure.
don't even realize it,
For sure.
So.
Do you think that the career path you chose is the one that you like? That was your calling in life. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. So I was in 7th grade, and my PE teacher was also my baseball coach.
Okay.
For senior league, and when I got into so it's 7th, 8th, and 9th was junior high, and that's what he taught, the PE. And I'm out there one day, and we're playing flag football, and he jumps in. He's playing flag football with us. And later, he's playing softball with us, hitting bombs. And I'm like, God, this dude gets to do this every day. I'm like, sign me up.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
so from that moment on, I knew exactly and I never changed. Like I never thought maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll look at this, or maybe
Like you didn't have any career path change in
No,
high or
since 7th grade.
college at all, or nothing.
No.
Okay.
No, well, at one point I wrote my mom and dad a letter, said, this is harder than I thought.
To be a PE teacher.
I might, and you'd think PE is easy, but I had like human anatomy and kinesiology.
Well, because
and,
you have the same kind of degree as like a science teacher or a math teacher. You learn everything the same then, right?
You have to learn all that stuff, and you never really touch it, in your teachings. Like you could step in and do my job, and it would take a year to figure everything out, and you'd be dialed, right, without any degree. And so I'm not saying you have to have that, but you figure it out as you go, and when I was in college, you have to take all those classes that you're not interested in, right? And
Like your basic,
the core, they're called core
Yep.
classes, right? And you have to take all those, and I'm like, God dang, this is zero fun, and I wrote my mom and dad, and they, because it was before email.
Yeah, for sure,
and
for
then
sure.
they wrote me back like, hey, if you really want out, you can. And I'm like, I'll finish out this year and then see where I'm at. And so I kept plugging away. It took me 5 years of college instead of 4, but I got through it.
So you said you have you could go through the administration part. Is that like what McCluskey went
Yeah.
through? Okay.
Yeah, so
Is there extra schooling for that or no?
Yeah. So as a teacher, you have to take continuing education constantly.
Okay.
So you always have to have these credits, and they've recently changed it from the as far as pay goes, but on the pay scale, so it's just a step scale for a teacher, and each year it goes up. But if you have this certain education, it jumps way up. And so after 18 years of teaching, this was a while ago, the difference on this scale between having your master's and not having your master's was a $10,000 a year difference, which was quite a bit. It was a big chunk. And
Oh yeah, so everybody's trying to go get their masters.
yeah.
at
So
that.
so if you didn't get your master's, you were killing yourself.
Okay.
And so McCluskey actually got his in just administration, and mine, I started in that, and I'm like, I don't like this at all. And then I switched to athletic administration and loved every second of it. 'Cause
Okay.
that was, it was in my ballpark again. So,
Okay.
So you get that, so I could be an athletic director if I wanted, and but after seeing what that entails, I was like, I just want to teach. I want to teach and coach.
Who was it wasn't McCluskey as the athletic director, was it? Was he just in he was like a vice principal at one point,
So
wasn't
McCluskey, yeah, he's a principal now. He was principal on the base for a while, and now I believe he's at North Elementary. As a
Oh,
principal.
okay. Because you have to work your way up as a principal then, right?
So usually, yes, a lot of them will get their foot in the door with athletic director or junior, like if they want to be at the high school. But McCluskey loves the elementary.
I bet because you got to start them young, because
Yep.
then that's going to be the best time to kind of. I'm trying to think of the word, like tendencies, I guess, because once you install into their head in 4th grade, then it's like, okay, he's going to be a good kid the rest of the way through.
Right, exactly.
So, because I remember it was because I didn't start wrestling until 6th grade, I think, and that was because it was 6th, 7th, 8th, but 6th graders couldn't travel with everybody. That we were kind of like or maybe it was the 5th grader.
You started as a 5th grader, because remember we had the 5th grade program.
Yeah, but we couldn't travel with everybody,
So
but we
you
could have home matches.
Yeah, you guys had home matches against each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we just started that with you guys.
My first year into
Yeah,
that? That's
yep.
crazy. Okay.
Yeah, because I wanted to get Pierce in as soon as I could and get him going. And they're like, we got to open it up to everybody. I'm like, fantastic. I'll
Like,
definitely
more
open
kids,
it
the
up to
better.
everybody. And so we have a team picture of that group when you guys are in 5th grade, and I think you're in 5th grade, but that is one of the biggest team pictures that
From 5th to 8th grade?
yeah, those
okay.
guys, there's like flipping 70 kids on that wrestling team, and a lot of it, like you said, was those guys coming out for 5th grade. But man, what a difference it makes! Because look at what you guys did as seniors with that group of wrestlers, right?
I was even going to ask you too, that year it had a lot of ups, and there really wasn't a lot of downs, I think, in that year for us, other than the state finals for the 3 of us. But throughout the season, I think that we were riding a high the whole year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we had maybe one practice where you guys were like, you guys need to figure it out. And you guys all walked out of the room, and us seniors were like, this is our last year.
Right.
If we don't do nothing right now, then what are we gonna be remembered for? And I think that was the only down part of our year.
Yeah.
And I was even gonna ask you was that the best year you've ever had coaching, or would you put a different year ahead of that?
There was 2 years that were super similar, and both times it was teams built around a coach's kid, not around that kid, but because that kid wrestled, all his friends wrestled and all his buddies wrestled, and so he got good grips. And the other one was Knutson's kid.
Okay.
When he came through.
With Ben, right?
Yep. With
Okay.
Ben and his group, and
Was that 2003, 2004?
I have a is right around there. You're real close.
Because I know because it was Nunez,
Yep.
Starkey, and then Knutson, right? They're all in kind of the same area.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Starkey
what I thought.
was a little bit older than them, but that we had a real good group, and that team and you guys. But I think you guys were like 32-3 as a dual team.
We did really good that year,
and that's the most duels we ever won. And I think that team was like, 23, but only had like one loss, or, in a duel. And so
those teams that we lost to, man, those were some tough teams too.
Yeah, they were state placing teams. They were good, and we didn't match up. You got to match up in duels, and you guys had a phenomenal, and it was my only year as head coach.
Which is crazy.
yeah.
Because you stepped away from head coaching after that, then, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know why you stepped away, dude. You could have.
There's only one reason. I wanted to go watch Pierce Wrestling College.
Okay, that makes sense. Because then you left every time you had a match, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went to as many matches as we could. We couldn't make a lot because it was so far away.
Yeah. Because he was in Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the difference between watching high school wrestling in person, obviously as a coach, but not even just as a coach, but like as a bystander, I guess, but then going and watching college wrestling compared to like is the ball game completely different?
No, you'd be surprised. Like so I'm a coach, right? And I'm yelling from the stands stuff. And I remember one thing specifically that their heavyweight was out there and he's trying to get up. And I finally yelled, God, I'm like, guy, he's postured up. All he has to do is knee slide. So I yell, knee slide. And the coach is like, knee slide. And the kid knee slides and pops right up and gets away. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, you guys could have wrestled in college. Absolutely. Now there's different levels. The stuff that we see that's D1, the elite D1 guys.
They're insane.
And that's another level, right?
Yep.
I mean, and those guys are just amazing. But for the most part, a majority of college wrestlers, you guys, once you mix in with them and start wrestling with them, you guys would have been.
It'd be no different feel. Because I mean, we had a tough room all the way through.
Yeah.
I know as a freshman, I got the crap kicked out of me, dude. I think I went to districts and went 0-2. And it sucks because I wish I would have taken it more seriously my freshman year because I took it serious the whole time, but I had driver's ed. I was stupid. I shouldn't have done it during wrestling. But then sophomore through senior year, I was like, I'm locked in. Right. Once wrestling season starts, I'm locked in. And it was just like, I got the crap kicked out of me all 4 years until senior year, because then it was like I was the big dog in the room,
right?
On that side of the room, you know what I mean?
But because you're behind Ortiz, right?
I was behind Ortiz, but even like my freshman year, I had Chung Hee, Dowlin,
Chung Hee, the man child,
Josh Deal, everybody. They would just kick the crap out of me because I was a big kid. So like,
and that's exactly what I was going to say. When you're big and you're young, your strength to weight ratio doesn't match up, right? And so you're wrestling kids that are juniors and seniors strong,
that are kicking the crap,
and you're freshmen strong.
Yeah,
you're the same weight, but the maturity and the strength, big differences. Whereas Pierce is wrestling freshman.
The same guys,
yeah, exactly. And so you can't compare the two. And so if anybody ever tries to go, just go. It's different. Heavyweight wrestling is a different deal altogether.
Oh yeah.
And why you were successful is because you were an athletic heavyweight. Because most of them are push, pull, snap.
Oh, all day.
And you threw some athleticism in there, and you did things that I was like, oh, God, just
like, why are you doing that?
I'm just and then it works. I'm like, do that.
Well, I had to be like that because of Ortiz, because he was athletic. Like he was so fast, dude. And
deceptively.
I could not I couldn't get in my head like I'm gonna beat this guy. He even said at our wrestle loss his senior year, he's like, I thought you were gonna kick the crap out of me. I was like, well, dude, I just had it in my head like big brother kind of mentality. You know what I mean? But I had to be athletic for that, and it was one thing that I carried over from football because I wasn't always. I was always the biggest kid throughout school,
right?
But I knew how to use my size to my advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in wrestling, I always tried to weigh like I think I weighed like 260 throughout senior year, and all these other kids were 280,
Right.
barely pushing it. And
Right,
it's like,
barely making the
it's like
weight
you
limit.
guys are doing yourselves dirty right now. Now you
Yeah.
can't eat whatever you want.
Exactly.
But then I had that little bit of
Cushion.
speed. Yeah. But I noticed, not noticed, but compared to me having to cut weight compared to the little guys cutting weight, you got firsthand experience seeing Pierce cut weight.
Oh yeah.
Was it as miserable as everybody makes it out to be?
It's the worst part about wrestling. I did the same thing, and I was a very cut high school kid. And there wasn't a lot to lose, but for some reason you get it in your head that, man, lighter's easier, and it's not, right? Because
Yep.
at the end of the day, you weigh the same. Whether you wrestle 105 pounds and you weigh the same, or you wrestle 115 pounds and you weigh the same, 130, your weight's still there, but for some reason in your head you think lighter's easier, and it's not. And so then you get into I got to get down, and it's miserable because it completely consumes every thought. I've told Pierce probably a dozen times since he's graduated, man, I'm sorry. If I was to do anything different, it would be have you cut nothing. Just go out and wrestle.
Wrestle the weight that you're at.
Yeah, whatever you're at, whoever steps up. It doesn't, it's because you're so wrapped up in winning, and the more you win, the more everybody expects you to. And
I could feel,
man.
It's crazy because I remember his freshman year. He went undefeated, won
Yep.
state, and
Yep.
I think he lost sophomore year one time, right?
Yeah, to
and
that
then
Oregon
once,
kid.
and then once that was the NISA tournament, right?
Yep.
Was it
Well,
NISA? Or
no, it wasn't Nissa.
Parma.
It was Parma.
The Parma tournament,
And then he lost to the same kid at Weezer. So he lost
Okay.
twice that year.
And then, but he obviously went on to win state. But then, the aftermath of our junior year,
Right.
What was there meetings about all that after the season?
It was crazy. They invited me to the referee meeting for our district.
After the match?
Not after, like way after the season.
Oh, okay.
Knutson and I got a call from them and said, "Hey, we want you to come down and explain what happened because it was such a big controversy." And
It made the papers and everything.
yeah,
So
I have one printout that I printed that was from Oregon that they brought it up in their referees thing and said, "What's your call here?" And it was, overwhelmingly the guy got it wrong, and he did, and he knew he did, and so I was your guys' senior year when we were at Bonneville
Hunter.
Duels. Yeah.
that was the best part about that whole
yeah.
duel right there.
That was the centennial duels.
When he did it to the same kid.
Yeah.
Because then did you see their reaction when
Yeah,
it happened?
Wait, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, you flipping hypocrite.
Yeah, for real.
But when you guys-
which one was the one that you were talking?
So when you guys went, we went to the Bonneville Duels, and you guys are steamrolling everybody, and you guys all went to shower, and I'm the only one sitting in the gym, and that referee comes walking out of the locker room,
gosh.
and he's walking by me. I'm like, I gotta say something, because I usually try to avoid controversy as much as I can. I just don't like. I'm just not that guy. But he comes by and I go, hey, and he goes, hey, I go, you ready to admit you got it wrong? And he goes, what? I go, are you ready to admit you got it wrong? I go, it's just me and you. And he goes, okay, at the time I thought I made the right call, but now I know, overwhelmingly that I got it wrong, and I apologize. And I go, okay.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Exactly. I go, I'm good.
Gosh.
So, but it was, but you know what? It made you realize that it's wins and lessons, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think Pierce, myself, our family, much better people because of that loss and dealing with it and seeing the way he dealt with it. I mean, he was way better than most people would have been, or I would have been.
I think he handled it better than you handled it.
Yeah, so do I.
For
That's
sure,
what I'm saying.
for
That's
sure.
what I'm saying. Yeah, I was ready to stay out there and stop the whole state tournament for another hour.
I know you were.
But
God.
he was such a cool guy. I mean, I got more compliments on him for that than either one of his state championships.
That he won?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I had people, because I went to my daughter's junior high track meet. People came up to me. I went to my other daughter's softball tournament, people were coming up to me. They're just like, the way you guys handle. I'm like, I was I was pretty upset. It wasn't me. It was him. But yeah, it chokes me up because it was such a big learning experience,
for sure,
for all of us. And I don't hold any grudges or any of that kind of stuff at all. It's just, it just makes you a better person in the end if seeing how people reacted because you did it right. Because it's so easy to do it wrong, right?
For sure.
Could have threw a fit, But yeah, they invited us. The referees invited Knutson and I to their meeting, and we get to the meeting, and we're just sitting there at this huge table, probably 30 refs around this table, and we're just sitting there, and they're going through all the stuff. I'm like, they forget they,
why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. And so they get done with all their stuff that they had on the document, and then they go, okay, what happened? What did he say? Why did he stick with his call? And so I explained the whole thing and told them what I said and what he said, and they were like, oh my gosh, we got to fix this. They go, we can't fix yours, and I'm like, yeah, obviously.
Well, yeah, it's months.
I wish you could.
Yeah.
Knutson took it straight to the state board. And they told him to
try to get the call reversed.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yep. And he was he goes, I don't care if you guys call it a draw. He goes, but my kid did not lose that match, and so they were like, what kind of can of worms it would open up if we change this? And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, but you got it right. And if that opens up other things and you have an opportunity to fix those things and change those, you don't not fix something because you might have to fix other things later. Yeah. Right? And that's
just like a lazy mentality if you think about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they don't want to do as little as possible. And so they were just like, no, we can't, we could, but we're not gonna, is what they essentially said.
At that point you just be like, all right, it happened, it's over. I think honestly, I could see that being like a factor that kind of fueled us our senior year. Just because I think it was Ogard won state that year, right? Was it just those two that were in the finals? My junior year?
Yep.
And hands down, probably the best scramble I've ever seen for a state finals match.
Yeah. I when I see him post something on Facebook or something, I always compliment him on his, on his state match somehow. But that scramble at the end when he could have very easily stopped wrestling and given that up, and he didn't. He got it done.
He was one of the guys that was kind of like he had like a dickhead mentality, but he wasn't a dickhead. You know what I mean?
No, not at all. He wasn't a jerk at all. He always wrestled really well for us, he's just like you. He's one of those guys that would you pick him to be in a state championship match when I'm coaching you in junior high? No, you have no idea. That's why you don't treat people different. Because I hope that kids think that I coach them as hard as I coached my kid, because that was my thought process. Because when I was in your corner, I'm your guy. Right?
Oh yeah.
I'm all in.
I think the best part that we had from you as our coaches, you knew what we liked, but we also knew that you going say first round's over and we get the call. We always chose bottom because we know that's what you would want us to pick.
Right.
But it's like we didn't even have to look over at you at that point because we all of us knew each other so well that's like, oh, we're going down or in the third round. Oh, if we can get him and we have to put him over, we're gonna go top, no problem.
Yeah.
But we all had that connection that it ran deeper than just wrestling. It did just because our whole class was together for
8 years.
Yeah. 8 years together.
8 years
obviously we had some people sprinkle in from here and there, but I would put our class up against a lot of other classes.
Oh, absolutely. When people look at that banner, they're like, God, look at all these guys are all jacked down here. They're all big and strong. I'm like, they're all wrestlers. I said they don't do anything extra special to look big. I go, this is what wrestling does for you. And these guys all wrestled. I pointed out all you guys and the ones that were in it since junior high. And I go, if you stick with it, that's the thing about wrestling. Anybody can be good. Anybody can be good. Honestly,
it always comes down to the basics too. Because my little brother Malachi, he's doing wrestling for junior high right now.
Okay.
And I was, as a viewer, they went to the Nampa duels and he's wrestling. I'm like, dude, I can't do nothing. Like I'm not a coach. I can't do nothing. I'm yelling from the top of the stands, like, do this, do that. And I'm just like, and I look at my dad. I'm like, is this how you felt, dude?
Oh yeah.
And it blows my mind, because even like football, I'm yelling stuff and he can't hear me.
Yeah.
He's not gonna listen to me, dude. But it's the same. I'm going through the same motions that my dad went through right now, and just as a brother. So
wait till it's your kid. There's nothing hard.
It's gonna be a train wreck.
Yeah. I'd rather watch football with my kid all day than wrestling, because it's just a different deal. It's hard. It was hard when he was in college and I'm sitting in the stands just a dad. Did
you ever get to meet like his coaches? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They let me actually coach him at regionals.
Oh, okay. Matches. Like stand in his corner.
Yeah.
And okay, that's
they invited
cool.
me down to be in the corner.
What did that moment feel like for you? Going
awesome.
from high school to being able to do that?
I thought that was cool, because they didn't have to do that at all. Mm-hmm. Right, and they
obviously know your track record. Right. Then okay.
Well, I think they hear me. I have that voice that that carries, and so when I'm there and I try not to over, I don't want to.
You're trying to be a viewer more than anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's sometimes that you just can't help it, right? You
sure.
You see something, you gotta say it. There's a real cool picture of Pierce on senior night wrestling a real good kid, and it went into like triple overtime,
Yep.
and Pierce ended up getting behind him in a weird position. That, remember the Merkle, when your leg is inside of theirs, but you're behind their arms.
Yep.
And even though this leg is trapped underneath, and
it's no points.
Well, they changed that to being a takedown.
Oh, okay.
And I think I was the only one in the gym that knew that. Me and the referee,
oh my
the referee
gosh.
knew it, and I'm like, that's two right there. So there's a picture of me, and I'm like that, and I'm the only one. Everybody else in the stands just is like,
don't even know what's going on.
And I'm like, it's over, So, but he had 3 different coaches.
Throughout college?
In college, because for some reason turned around. But the last guy invited me down they were all super nice to me. And the last guy invited me down to sit in his corner at regionals, and we won a couple matches together. And
that's sick.
Yeah, it was cool, because I thought that was done, right?
What did he? Was that his last year of coaching or his last year of wrestling? Then,
yeah.
Could he only do 4 years? Then is that all he was?
He could have done another because of the COVID thing.
Oh, okay.
So you see those guys that are on year 5 or year 6. Mm. He could have had one more year, but he got accepted to dental school.
It would have taken a lot of time then.
He would have had to reapply for all that, and you might not get in, right?
Oh, wow.
It's not like it's an automatic, I apply for dental school. It's just a matter of which one I'm in. They have to accept you.
Okay.
And so he had to do a bunch of interviews for it. And each interview costs money for some reason. You have to pay.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is. You have to pay to interview, and then he just had to do that again last year for this residency that he's going to do. He flew, I think, 10 different places all around the United States.
Oh my gosh.
With these interviews, trying to get into a school to do his residency. And so anyway, he could have wrestled one more year as a graduate.
He just chose not to then because of that.
He's like, Dad, I can't. He said, what if I screw this up? And this is and wrestling isn't.
It's not guaranteed.
No.
To go, because I mean, what if you go to the Olympics or something like that? You're getting paid to go to the Olympics, right?
Right. You're getting sponsored. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
See, but that's not ever guaranteed.
No.
So.
No, I mean, wrestling is just so, as you know, hard. Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's flipping hard, and that's why I respect you guys that did it so much, because I know how hard it was, how hard it is.
Well, you went through it yourself too, right. So.
But the expectation of winning wasn't as high as it was on you guys, right? Because I had some decent coaches, but I don't remember them in my corner. And so that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember any kind of, back and forth from the corner at all. Well, in my matches. And so.
Do you remember it more as you of a coach than you do as you of a wrestler then?
Yeah. So.
Obviously you got more years as a coach.
Right. Right. But yeah, you only remember certain things as you get older. You remember the big wins, the big losses.
Oh yeah.
But what's funny is like I can almost remember every one of my losses. You know,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you everybody I beat, but I can remember the losses. But those are what make you good. You can't be successful without losing. You really can't. You know, and you hear it all the time, right? On podcasts and people talking about losing, but even though you hate it, right? You hate it and it kills you and it wears on you. And you think about it, you know, the high of winning is fantastic.
But it only lasts for
it only lasts
that night, and then it's like, what happened?
Yeah, might last the weekend if it's a real good win,
Yeah.
right? And then, but then if you're talking about your wins, you're just, you know, it just sounds like you're another guy talking about himself.
Yeah, for sure.
But the losses through the process of losing, you have to go back and go, okay, why'd I lose? And so now you're a fixer, right? Now you fix things, and now you get better. And so through the process of a loss, now you're going to get better. Where the win, you don't go back and go, why did I win? You know,
Just like, oh, I'm on to the next.
Yeah,
on to the next.
Yeah, who's next? You know, and so you have to, and then it's not just wrestling. You know, it's
life altogether.
Absolutely, yep. Yeah, you have to take some L's, and there's no harder L's than wrestling. So when you guys are going through ups and downs, which you'll have, right, in life,
Yep.
you'll know how to handle it.
For
You know,
sure.
You'll get
For
down
sure.
there. You're not just going to go, I give up, I'm quit. You're not going to be that guy. You're going to go, okay, this sucks, but how do I fix it?
I know that most of the duels that what sucked about the duels is like, it was like a Tuesday night. And then we practiced for 2 days, and then we're back in a tournament.
Yeah.
But it's like, I remember if we ever lost a duel, which we really didn't lose a lot of duels from freshman all the way to my senior year.
No.
But I remember every time after a loss, we would go through, and you and Knutson and Bish, all-time great head coaches, or coaches in my opinion.
Oh, I appreciate that.
But you guys would always work on what we could have done instead of we're going to learn something else.
Right.
Which was the best part, because it's like, okay, if I got caught if for whatever reason in a half, you would always be like, well, Harden would break his shoulder just so he wouldn't go over. But it's like, it's those things. It's like, why did we get in this position?
Right.
Or why did we get to that spot?
Yeah.
But that was what I envied about it, is because you guys would always go through our losses harder than our wins, which was the best part about it.
Right.
It just made us that much tougher.
Right. Going back to that's how you learn. You know, you have to have those L's.
Yeah.
You have to have those in order to say, okay, because if you go and you just flip and rock a team, right? And you guys did. There's several times you just smashed people.
I think there was a few duels where we didn't lose a match.
Yeah, exactly. You had some shutouts, which is crazy in wrestling.
Yep.
You're not thinking, you don't see anything you can improve on, right? Because you rolled them, and so you think you're good, and then you beat another, and then you find another team that's that step above you, and you go, okay, here's what we need to work on.
Yeah, for
it
sure.
exposes your weaknesses, you know,
For sure.
And so you remember, I don't know if you remember, but we had the weakness drill where you and your partner would work on your weakness, you know, for 10 minutes, and then you'd switch, and he'd work on his weakness and turn it into your strength.
Oh yeah, Ortiz kicked the crap out of me in that drill. I think me being in that room with those guys like that turned me into the person that, like, the wrestler that I needed to be, to just kind of lead by example. Because I didn't try to be the raw guy. I was just going out there and showing up every day, and I thought that was enough for me.
But your attitude was okay. I got to emulate that, right? Because you didn't beat yourself up too much. You were never pissy at anybody. You never, and so that's the kind that kind of thing too. People look at and go, okay, that's the way you should handle it. You know? And so you're really good about that. And isn't it crazy how wrestling, as individual as it is, you can't succeed without teammates.
Well, if you wrestle, I always think of like those little schools that had one or two guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you guys even do anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I always think of like Glenn's Ferry for how small their program was, but they were tough kids all the way through. But it's like those 1-2 guys. It's like, how do you get anywhere in the tournament? Like, unless your coach is the one wrestling.
Right.
You.
Exactly. Yep.
But it's like, as a coach, I don't know if you guys want to go through another year like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Practicing every day. So
yeah. Oh, it beats you up for sure. Like I tore my ACL, dislocated my shoulder, broke my thumb, broke my pinky. You know, just you get beat up, and that's just the coaching. You know, that's not even when I was competing.
You tore your ACL as a coach?
Yeah. Me and McCluskey were up showing stuff, and he he was behind me and trying to return me, and I kind of hooked his leg, and so then he like blocked my knee and pulled me over it. And I was like, "Oh!" I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna throw up."
You're like, we gotta go.
I'm gonna throw. Yeah, I thought I was, and I walked around. It was in November, and I didn't get it checked till April because I'd never been injured before.
Oh my
I'd been hurt, you know.
Oh my
and I'm limping around. My
gosh.
mom's like, "You're still limping?" I'm like, "When you get it checked?" And that doctor took 2 seconds. He's like, "Your ACL's gone." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "It's not there." And so
Oh
he
my
goes, "You can either have
gosh.
surgery, do nothing athletic the rest of your life." I'm like, "Oh, it's a tough decision." So, but yeah,
You just rehabbed and whatnot, so you could still go out and do stuff then, right?
Yeah, well, this was after the season when I finally went in. And
Oh,
so
okay, okay.
I got the surgery, and I remember coaching baseball at the high school because I used to coach three sports: football, wrestling, and baseball for a little bit. And I remember having to drag my lawn chair everywhere to sit down because
You're
I
just yelling.
just had surgery. Yeah, but yeah, it beats you up. I mean, the physicality. You didn't come out of a wrestling practice unscathed, right? Bloody nose, fat
Oh,
lip.
yeah.
This got tweaked, that got twisted. That
If you
know.
did, then you didn't practice
No,
hard enough.
yeah, exactly. You avoided stuff.
I know that like I'd even get to the point where I would bring like an extra shirt just because of how sweaty we got.
Oh, yeah.
I got to ask you this. Did you guys ever turn up the heaters in there?
You'd swear we did, but we had no control. Of
I
that.
thought you guys all like every practice just if someone walks up like,
No,
hey, you
even
know?
even when I was a kid, that thermostat didn't do anything. Used to, those big square things that are hanging.
It didn't
up in
do
there?
anything.
Yeah, those were the heaters way back in the day, and the thermostats controlled those. But now it's controlled at the I think the custodian's office, so that that I think they control that. But we honestly had no. I've been in rooms that do turn it up, but we had no control.
You guys, it always felt like 130 degrees
Yeah.
in there.
People would walk in there like, "Oh my god." Walls are dripping, right?
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
physically, they're dripping down.
It felt hotter in our corner because it was all black on the mat. All the little guys had an orange mat. It was all light over there. And you get over to our side, it's just a black hole.
Right.
But
it's just a lot of just that body heat of those guys just get rolling and working. And I didn't, like, I remember, like I'd go out of the room, talk to a parent or something for 15, 20 minutes, and then I'd come back in. And that's when you really
hits
feel
you.
it. Oh yeah, you're like, oh god, this is what I just walked out of. I mean, it's indescribable. You cannot describe to somebody how hard wrestling is. They would have to do it, and they'd have to do it for more than a day.
they have to do it the whole year to
They
understand
have to do it the whole year to completely, get how physically demanding it is. And then, like we talked about earlier, you throw in the weight aspect of it, and that's all you think about. You're not thinking about your match or how to get better. You're thinking about what you can't have to eat or drink. So if
I saw one of the guys eat lettuce and hot sauce because he was cutting weight.
Right.
And I'm looking at him, I'm like, dude, what are you doing to yourself, dude?
I know.
And then these guys would weigh in. And then right after, like, not even the first weigh in, they have to still watch what they ate.
Yeah, 'cause
but
that
then the
night-
second weigh in, we're all going out to eat. They're eating everything.
yeah.
And then I'm looking at them like, dude, you guys are out there.
You're gonna feel that tomorrow. I know nobody does. Hardly any wrestler does it right. I mean, they're getting better at it, But man, it's just the horrible part about wrestling. So if you have a kid and he wrestles, just let him wrestle.
Yeah, for
Honestly,
sure.
Just let him wrestle. Don't worry about the scale. Just go out there and roll. And if there's a tough kid in the weight class, fantastic. You'll take an L, but you'll see what the next level.
You'll
is.
learn. You'll learn from it.
Yeah. Like I told you, I told Pierce a million times, man, I'm sorry that we cut weight, and I would never.
Was that you making him cut weight, or was that him?
But Pierce is the type of kid that he bought into whatever I said, right? And it didn't matter what it was, and so if I mentioned it, he's in. And I'm sure I mentioned it, right? What about in a back?
And then
end?
over time, you're like,
Yeah,
why did I say that?
Exactly. I feel like such a jerk. I'm like, gosh, I apologized to him, and I go, man, he goes, like, Dad, it was my decision too. He goes, don't worry about it. I go,
You're the one making all
Yeah.
the decisions behind the
Please don't
doors.
have your kid cut. He goes, okay, I won't. I said, just let him just wrestle.
What do you think is one of the highs of your life? Not just wrestling wise, just all of your whole life that you've had so far.
Ooh, that's a good one. probably, the my kids with their character. Because I get so many compliments on my parenting, and I didn't do a thing. They compliment my parenting because of my kid's character, and honestly, it's them. They chose to be that type of person, and I think that's probably the thing I'm proudest of.
Like your most proud moment you probably had. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a moment. It's just a. It was. I got compliments all the time. You guys are doing a great job parenting. I'm like, I'm not doing anything.
Look, I just go home and do my thing.
There's no trick. There's no book. I'm not. They just. I go. They choose to be those kids. And so, and you do, and you're always pointing them in the right direction, right? I think parents nowadays, either too hands on or not enough, right? And you got to be the person that, even though you say you don't make their decisions for them, that doesn't mean you don't point them in the right direction and go.
For sure.
And so I think they're missing that. So we did that as Tiffany and I as parents, but nothing special, honestly. They just turned out to be good kids that wanted to do the right thing, And so I think that. And there's tons of proud wrestling moments, that we've had that, like you can mention any name and I will have a highlight of
just one
of them doing something, cause like I said, when I'm in the corner, I really do. I'm vested, right? Even so, I came back and I don't know if you knew this. I coached 3 years of junior high.
Yeah, I saw
for a little bit.
I saw the post that you were back. Were you the head coach for that again, or just
no?
helping?
I let Goolsby.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to. So I'm the king of assistant coaches. Because I get to do the part of the job that I want to do.
I know you don't like to deal with all the paperwork.
Yeah, but
I know
it's not
you
just
don't like to do that
because I don't have to be. Hey, I'm the guy.
For sure.
I don't need that. I don't have to say I'm the head coach. And so
I know that when I was playing football and you were the coach, I think McCluskey was the head coach, right? Or no, C2, that was Cristobal. Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I let Cristobal do the offense and I let Walker, Big Coach Walker do the defense, and I sat back.
You're the coach's coach.
Yeah, and I did all the little things, that, and it was, and Optimus is pretty easy, it's not as entailed as other football things. And also, I was a football player all the way through, but I know receiving stuff. I don't know all these other things. So I never learned them as a player. And so as a coach, you're like, I have to learn this in order to coach it.
Yeah,
these guys already know it. Let them go. Let them take it. Let them go.
How come you never wanted to go to the high school level and coach football?
I did. Oh, I coached football.
You stopped way before I got into high school then. Okay. All right.
And it was because of I didn't get along great with the guy that was the head coach.
Okay.
And it was, I'll leave it as simple. I'm not going to talk bad about anybody.
For sure.
We just butted heads. We're different people, right? And he was still successful.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the way he did things. That's a cool thing about Knutson and I and Bish.
You guys meshed so well together, so well.
And behind the scenes, sometimes we fought like brothers. If we butted heads on something, but you never walked away not knowing what that person was thinking, right? And
I don't think any of us ever saw something like that between you guys. You guys really kept it under wraps more than anything.
Yeah,
because we always saw you guys doing as a team. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that was one thing that I've noticed for you guys for sure.
Yeah, Knutson was real good about letting you do what you were good at, right? And so he let Bish and I run the room. And we did, and he did everything else. But if he had something to say, you're still, hey, this is the guy. We're listening. So I think, like, as far as respect to all three coaches, I don't think anybody thought, well, I like this guy, but I don't like. It was just different kinds, right? You respected this about this guy and this about this guy, but you respected him still. And so,
okay.
And so Knutson was real good about letting people do what they were good at, like I was decent at talking to parents and he wasn't. And so,
I could see that.
Because he's just blunt. He would say that, I'm like Knutson. So he'd flip in, he'd get me out of practice to come down to the office to talk to talk to parents, you know, because he knew that I could, you know, say what he wanted to, but he, you know, because if he's pretty black and white.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
And once you figure that out about him,
He's that as a teacher too.
Yep, and he was that like as my mentor, you know, talking to me. Like I remember one time that you guys were supposed to be there at 4:30 to set up, and I rolled in at 5, thinking you guys were just setting up, and he got on me. You know, he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "We weigh in at 5," you know, and he's like, well, "I told everybody to be here at 4:30." I'm like, I thought but he, you know, he let me have it, and I deserved it, right? And so, but if
He expected you guys the same way he expected us, for sure.
Yep.
How long were the three of you guys coaching together for?
Oh, let's see. From 96.
God, you're old, man.
I know. From 96 to 16.
That was like
right? Because
going into
your junior year, he stopped, right?
Yeah, because then he retired. I don't think he retired from teaching for a little bit.
Yeah,
he's retired as a teacher now, though, right? Okay.
He in 2020 he retired.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so what, 20 years?
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and one time, man, he was so mad at me, wanted to kick me off the bus. he wanted me off the bus so he could yell at me, and I'm like, no, if I get off the bus, we're going at it. You know? I'm like, I'm not getting.
We're wrestling out in the parking lot.
We were mad, and so, but we're both the type of people that, and I think guys in general, right, are pretty good about just dropping stuff.
For sure.
And because I say that because my wife holds grudges like you wouldn't believe, you know.
I think I don't mean to offend nobody, but I think that's just a woman
me
thing.
Me neither. I think she'll hold on. She's like, you know, girls in high school, that she still doesn't like because of things, but I'm pretty good at dropping stuff, especially if you show any type of remorse at all. Like, hey, God, I'm sorry. Even if I think you do, I'm good. You know. I
remember there was one time for the exact where like we were I think you had a substitute and we like skipped out on running around the school and I tried to hide from you in the wrestling room and it's just so big and I think you were looking for me. It was me and one other person. You're like, what are you doing, dude?
Oh,
and then after like, I remember that practice was just weird because me and you were on a different like wavelength. And then after I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. And then we were good after that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that was the only time me and you have ever had a difference. Cause it's always like, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, like I said, you have the type of personality that you know, I don't think anybody could stay mad at you. You know, you give him a hug, give him a smile, and go, hey, you know, and I get when, you know, I had to punish one of my all girls class the other day for not doing what they were supposed to when we had a sub, and their punishment was spread out in their attendance line, turn around and face the wall for the entire period.
Oh, gosh.
So they were this close to the wall, you know, for 45 minutes, and I felt so bad because some of them are real good kids. I said, if you guys want to do nothing's what we'll do. And so they turned around and looked at the wall the entire time. And I'm looking at them sitting there and I'm thinking, God, there's some good kids that are just, but they just, you know, but I get it. Cause
it was one of those lessons.
Yeah. So just because I might've done the same thing in high school and I can tell you that, but it doesn't mean that I don't correct it.
Sure.
And I think that's another parent thing. They're like, oh, I did that in high school. That's fine, you know, and they don't correct it. You know, you can say you did something but you got to fix it. Right?
Okay.
And as parents, you should be a fixer. You know, that's what's hard about coaching and being a parent. Now you're a double fixer, right? You're the parent that's a fixer. You're a coach that's a fixer. You're a teacher that's a fixer. And so like, you ever had like, so a kid comes home and they have their report card and there's all A's and a B. What do the parents mention?
The B.
The B, because that needs fixed, right? Yeah. So they don't say, hey, fantastic job on all these A's and pat your back and let you go. They're like, oh, what
is
happened?
this?
What's the B? But it's human nature, right? It's completely normal.
I had a bunch of stuff written down that I wanted to ask, but I'm just trying to go off cuff or whatever more than anything. But I was going to ask you, what was it different being a coach to your kids and then being a parent to your kids? Like, what was there like a happy medium you had to find?
No, because not with me, because I'm the same guy everywhere I go.
Okay.
So I don't put on a teacher mask, and I don't put on a coach mask, and I don't put on a parent mask. I'm pretty much the same guy, which isn't always great if you're coaching them at home. But I can't tell you how many times Pierce and I pushed this thing aside and got right here, and it's just showing, because you always want, because it's always in your head, because you want. You're like I said, you're a fixer. If you're a coach, you're a fixer. Like we talked about the losses, and this is what we got to work on.
Yep.
And parents, you're a fixer. You see all these A's, but there's a B. How can we get that to an A? You're a fixer. And so you're constantly thinking about those things. And so I had to make myself. So you think, is there anything I was conscious of? I had to make myself not do that as much as I wanted to.
Okay.
You want to constantly fix, and you have an opportunity because they're right there. I can remember one time. So and I'm not a yeller or screamer. So I didn't. How many times have I screamed at you guys?
I think I think it was the one practice where we were just wrestling like crap up in the room, and you and Bish are like, you know what? We'll just run the rest of the time. And we ran for an hour and a half stairs. I think that was the only time. You guys really didn't even yell, but it was the tone that you guys said. It's like, oh yeah, no, they mean business.
Yeah,
they mean business.
Yeah.
But I think the only time I've ever seen you yell was like yelling at Pierce about something little or whatever in the room. Or not even the room,
it's
but
usually about him getting upset at himself.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the only time I've ever seen. Yeah,
that drove me crazy. But it was just because he held himself, here all the time.
For sure.
And so I had to let him know that it's okay to.
I think him being as good as he was, I think he saw that other people put him on that pedestal.
Yeah, and
which sucks. Which sucks.
Well, it's human nature, though.
For sure.
I still see that with our good wrestlers at the schools today. Like when they do lose, everybody, you lost.
Yeah.
What the heck? They make a big deal out of it.
Which sucks. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. Yeah.
And that's okay. That is what it is. But I'm not a yeller or screamer, and so I'm not that way at home. But I can still get my point across with a
just a firm voice,
a firm voice, and people know. Like when I'm in the weight room and somebody's doing something, I just go, "Hey, done."
Damn, dude. Yeah,
it's done.
Well, then everybody looks like, what's going on?
Yeah, and it completely, it's completely finished. Whatever they're doing, it's just a firm hey, and they're done because they know. Mm-hmm. They know. Okay, and I don't, make a big deal out of it and go over and yell at them, it's because it's already fixed, right? Mm-hmm. So, but like I said, I'm pretty much the same guy, and so I didn't have that controversy of coaching and being their dad. I was trying to tell you one time that I got on Paisley. They just lost, and you'd think that I was getting on her a little bit about and it had nothing to do with that. It's because their attitudes when they were playing, like they didn't care, And
I know that was your biggest gripe for any sport was if you don't show attitude, then I don't even care what you do.
Yeah.
If you lose, whatever, cool. Yeah. But you're gonna pay the next day that we go to practice or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so, when my expectation is that it's two things, right? I don't know if you remember that we had it on our sweatshirts for a while. I don't know what years, but it was effort and execution. Right?
Yeah, I think that was like our sophomore year. I think something like that.
If you take care of those two things in wrestling, you're going to be successful, right?
Yep.
And later you change it to effort and attitude, because those are the two things that are choices, right? They're not skill sets, they're not talents, it's not something this guy has that this guy doesn't, because they're just choices. And so if you take care of your effort and your attitude, man, what else is there really?
For sure.
Your practices are going to go well. You're going to be successful in everything you do if you take care of those two things. Because everybody wants to be around. One of the first things you talked about today was being around that guy that makes you want to be better. Right? And those kind of people, like, I've had a couple of those come through my life that I really remember. Go, God dang, I want to be like that. He just up, just the attitude that they carry themselves with, and you just appreciate that, and you need that. You need somebody to show you there's another level, right? Of being, because you might think you're a pretty good dude, and I'm pretty moral, and I do the right things, and and then there's another level. This guy's doing everything,
and then he's just topping that. Yeah,
exactly.
Which is crazy to think, because it's like you could be the best dude of all time. but then there's going to be another level that you can
Yep.
even reach the Everest to that. And it's just,
Exactly.
it's wild to think about because my class, we had a lot of good people going in that whole class. Like there was obviously those people that were mean and doing their own thing, but for the most part, like I think our group, our 2017 class, not just wrestlers, but the whole grade, I thought we were all pretty close with each other
Yeah.
all the way throughout school because a lot of us were here. Obviously, those people that move in, move out, or whatever. But I think there was like 100 of us that were all from 5th grade
Yeah.
to senior year.
You know, and you'll stay in touch with those guys, and you won't forget those guys for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a bunch of people that I met in college. My recall of them is minimal, but my high school friends and the kids I grew up with,
Yep.
I mean, it's like you know, that memory is always fresh. You know, with those guys, and so. You got to appreciate the fact that you had that kind of class because not everybody does.
Yep,
You know,
for sure.
And when you do, because I know I had that class.
Mm-hmm.
The guys I went to school with, those guys are the best of the best. You know, as far as people go. And like I said, they're the ones that I still hang out with and call and talk to. Not as often as I want to, just because I'm not that kind of guy. You know, I'm not a big reach out guy. But no, I know that if I did, it'd be like we just talked yesterday, you know, with those guys. So appreciate the fact that you have a class like that, and you know, it's not just because you're relatively young still, and just, you know, got out of that, but you'll have that.
We're
same
approaching
feeling.
our 10-year anniversary
Isn't
here
that nuts?
soon, dude. It feels like I just got out of high school yesterday,
Yeah.
but it's like it's
know,
just
a
crazy to
couple years,
think.
right?
It's crazy to think, man, because I've had a lot of good people that have like shown me how to be a good person or how to show a good attitude or how to show up on time. Like one thing that has always stuck to me was the Ironman award.
Oh yeah,
Because I'm never late to work, never late
Really?
to like even just doing this. I was like, hey, I'm gonna be here by 5. I was here at 4:55, 4:53 somewhere. I'm always on time. I don't miss nothing unless it's like. I hate the word sick, but it's like there's a level to being sick.
there's a time. Yeah, absolutely there is, and you don't want to get other people around you sick.
Exactly.
You know, could you physically go and make it? Yeah, but people don't want to be around that and possibly get it
For
and spread
sure.
it. And so my wife makes me stay home sometimes because of that. You know, she's like, no, you're gonna get other people sick. You're
gonna get all these kids sick.
I can get through. You know, I can get through. But
That's the one award though that has stuck with me since you installed it, and it's just like I'm still upset about 8th grade when I broke my finger and Starkey screwed me over on that. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, so every year, so I started that with you guys, and I wish I had it, you know, forever, because now it's the award to get. Did you know they made it in every sport award?
No way.
Yeah, so the school incorporated it, and I told them, this kind of irritates me a little bit. I told them what it consists of. I go, perfection. I go, you got to be perfect, and
It doesn't mean that you're losing or like that you. It's not just winning every time.
no, it
It's-
has
yeah,
nothing to do
exactly.
with your talent at
Yep.
all. It's back to effort and attitude, right?
Yep.
And you got to be perfect. I'm like, oh, they just had a haircut. I'm like, they're out. You know, I told them, you know, there's certain things. I said, there's certain things that I'll let go, and they're like if you made the all-star football game, and you had that all-star thing, and you had to miss my practice because of that. Absolutely.
That's a
To
different
me,
sport.
That's a different deal. But because your parents made you go to Boise, or you had to get a haircut, or you had to go pick up your tux, or I said, you're out. You know,
Yeah.
I've kicked really good people out of Ironman
Just for
Be-
one
one thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, and a couple years ago when we were doing it for softball, you know, I had my buddy I was coaching with. We had to kick his daughter out, who did everything we asked and was the best player on the team, and missed because her mom made her an appointment. I think a doctor's appointment, and missed part of practice.
Do that during school.
Yeah,
Do that during
I know.
school.
Isn't that crazy? How we had guys just, I mean, sick.
I
as
would tell my
dogs.
mom. I would
Yeah.
tell my mom that, like, hey, I'll miss school, but I'm not missing wrestling practice.
So I go up and I talk to the wrestlers still at day one, and I went up there and talked to them this year. I go. You want to be successful. I go, win the Iron Tiger. You know, because
Yep.
we changed it from Iron Man to Iron Tiger when the whole school incorporated it.
Okay. Is it like kind of it's displayed now, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Well, ours is. I put ours up because we
I know it's right inside the door right when you open it.
because we created that, and I tell them. I said, you have to be perfect. Your attendance has to be perfect. There's no excuses. There's no missing. There's no late. There's no forgetting your equipment or not making weight. Or I said, and you're going to have your own rules for your team. I said, but if any of those infractions occur, regardless of the reason, then they don't get it. But when I went to one of the award things to award our softball players at the end of the year, because they award them all at the same time now. And people were getting up there. They're like, our offensive Iron Tiger is this, and our defense. I'm like, that's not it. I'm like, just because that's a great kid and he has great character and
they're changing the rules up. I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
I go and I got it when it was my turn. I told them that. I told everybody, and there was all the administrators in the room, and I go, you guys are messing. You got to be perfect. I go, it's not your best kid, your best athlete, your favorite kid. It's not. They have to be perfect. That way, anybody can win it, right?
Yep.
Anybody can win.
As long as you show up, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it.
And so Starkey always asked me, hey, what about this kid? What about this kid? And there was a couple, like 2 got injured and had to go get that injury checked. And I'm like, I go, that's related. I go, that's.
That was what happened to me, and he marked me down.
Right.
I was mad, dude.
Yeah, that's why I said because I told him, I go, you're gonna have if parents throw a fit about that one, you're gonna have a hard time fighting that one. A girl committed suicide, and they went to her funeral. I go, again, different deal, right? That's So there's room.
There's boundaries.
For everything, right? There's if you're so cut and dry about everything, you're making a mistake.
I agree.
Everything has an exception. No matter how strongly you feel about something, and this is what you believe, and there's always exceptions outside that. And when those come up, you got to be man enough to go, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's outside my boundary, and that's not what I wanted. But you're right. This should count. So Starkey and I usually go through them together, and for the wrestling, and go, okay, yeah, this one. There was 2 haircuts that they missed part of practice for.
Yeah, no, that you can count that one out.
I go, yeah, I've booted people for that, and he's like, that's the only thing they missed. I'm like, that one counts, I said the funeral's different, you don't battle that one.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a student suicide. I go, that's a different deal.
That's a big loss right there, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so they went to the funeral, and then they I guess they could have made practice the end of practice or something, but I go, I wouldn't touch.
Take your day. Take the day. Do what you got to do. Just come back.
Yeah. And so life wise, you got to remember those things, right? There's always exceptions. There's always something outside your set of rules or standards that you got to go. You really got to think about and go, yeah, I get it. And if you can do that. And you should be able to, but some people are so, no, this is the way it is, and this is what I'm gonna, and you can't be that guy, you gotta see here, I always tell kids, I go, the thing about high school is that you pretty much just see right here, and I said, and as you get older, you see a little bit more of it, and and then when you have kids, you really, your own kids, that's the game changer. It completely makes you look at everything different. Once
like your outlook on life,
everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything you see a little bit different. It's no longer about you, and it's always been just like I was always about me. I was so selfish, Kaiser, and I was always, and then when I had kids, it completely became about them, and so you see things differently, you look at things differently, and you have a better perspective, I think, or you should. If you don't, then you got to look at yourself.
What is what characteristic do you think changed the most about you, other than being, in your words, selfish, I guess? What characteristic do you think you took from your parents installed into raising your kids?
So my parents, I felt like I never went without. My mom worked. she was a cocktail waitress, so she worked at a restaurant / bar at night, and would save every single tip for our Christmases. My dad wasn't a big present giver, but when he was, it was exactly what you needed. You know,
Okay.
if I needed a glove, if I needed cleats, you know, and so.
You're good. Let it out, man. It's a safe space here, man.
So I honestly never felt like I went without, you know, and looking back, I know we didn't have a lot of money, didn't take vacations really or do any of that, but man, I never, whatever I needed, they were there, you know. So as a parent, you're like, it's hard not to get them stuff, you know, especially
for sure.
especially sport wise. You know,
sports are very expensive.
You're gonna find the same thing because you love sports so much. You're gonna want to get them this and get them, you know. And even if you don't have the money, you'll figure it out, you know. And so, I think that just that they were always there, you know, and they couldn't go to everything because of the work schedule,
Yep.
right? So it's not that they were at every single thing or anything like that, but
They were present.
Yeah, I never felt like they didn't do enough.
Okay. So. Who's your hero in life?
Yeah, my kids.
Yeah?
Yeah. Just, I mean, I wish that I could be as good a person as they are, you know? I hate that I get choked up.
It's all right.
The older I get, the worse I get. And you've seen it at the flipping banquets, but it
was always the banquet that was the hardest for you, for sure.
And if you ask my kids, they'll say their mom, because she's a rock, man. She really is. She's
ever since she because obviously she went to everything that she could. Maybe not all everything, because she works in the medical field, right?
Right.
So I know she probably works crazy hours then.
Yeah.
But I know that she always seemed like the tough one. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But like was always even keeled all the way through.
Yeah, she's the rock. And so if you ask them who their hero was, I bet they would say her. You know, if they weren't worried about hurting my feelings, you know, because they would.
Like they'll say you in front of you, but then
they'd worry about hurting my feelings. But she's the rock. Yeah, she keeps everything, like you said, even keeled, and she is tough. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's the toughest 4'10" person you'll ever meet, man. But yeah, it's crazy.
Do you think that would? I'm not even like thinking that it would be hard, but like because obviously like, I'm a giant compared to you guys.
Right?
Is it a big difference? Like, was that one thing that people always like talk crap about?
You hear it every single day. Every single day somebody says something.
Obviously, you guys aren't like midgets or nothing, but
right. I'm 5'4" on a good day with the right shoes.
Put some boots on, maybe 5'5".
Yeah. My daughters are 4'9", 4'10". Pierce is 5'2", 5'3". And when we told them, you're gonna hear it.
Yep.
It's gonna be constant, and if you let it bug you, it will. But if you don't, it won't.
I know that they would joke about it too when somebody would joke around. Like that's the best way to go through it.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes when you're big, you get the same thing.
Oh right? Yeah, all the way through.
People think that they're funny, and you know, every once in a while somebody will say something. A short joke that I haven't heard, and I'm like, all right, well, that was a pretty good one. I taught summer school PE in Boise, and in Boise, all the schools in Boise go to the same place for summer school.
Okay.
So we had like Boise, Timberline, Bora, Capital, you know, all in the same place, and so I had these huge PE classes that would last all day. So it was only a month, but it was all day PE. And so I got to know those kids pretty well, but they called me Sergeant Smalls.
Sergeant Smalls.
I thought it was funny. You know, because
awesome.
I'm pretty, you know, especially at the beginning, you got to be. It's so much easier to start a little bit hard, and then you can soften up as you go, than it is if you start soft and then try to harden up. It never works.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know you've heard that before. And you know how picky I am about little things.
It's
you know
the littlest, the way you tie your shoes.
Yeah, exactly. Everything has a way,
yep.
Right? And so I'm real picky about it. So imagine living with that, and that's you know. So that's what my kids had to put up with, you know, teaching them how to sweep the garage, how to mow perfect straight lines. So everything's like that with me, and I really can't help it. I'm OCD.
But that's one thing that you probably say that your kids are your heroes then, because of how strict, maybe not how strict, but how tough you were.
Right.
Because like my dad was the same way about. I mean, I'm not gonna say that he was like just rude or nothing, but he was very stern on how he wanted stuff done.
Right.
And it was one of those things like, okay, I know that he means business. Like we lived off Pearl Street just over here. You know where that's at. And we had like an acre in the backyard, and we had a riding lawnmower. And one time me and my brother got in trouble. And he's like, well, you're going to push mow the whole acre. And we had a riding lawnmower sitting right there. He's like, I don't want that thing moved. No. And it was like, we took shifts trying to do it. But he's like, those lines better be straight by the time I get back. And we got it done. We got it perfect. He's like, all right, you guys can use riding lawnmower next time. But it's just one of those things, like just being stern about it.
Right?
Sure.
When you look back at those things, you appreciate it later. But at the time, you're like, oh gosh. So I'm sure I drove my kids nuts and Tiffany nuts with how, because to me, if there's no two ways to do it. There's right and wrong. Right? Mm. So. And maybe I'm way too far on that side, but that's how I teach my classes. That's how so we have a saying is, we're not going to do it till we get it right. We're going to do it till we can't get it wrong. Have you ever heard that?
Yep.
And I think that's a great saying to approach things. So you make because it's just a way of holding yourself accountable, right? Because I talk to my classes every day. I said, if you're doing 8 reps and you're supposed to do 10, I go, you got to change.
You're cutting yourself short too.
You are, yeah. You got to change that mindset. It shouldn't be okay with you to do 8 instead of 10 when you're supposed to do 10. Mm-hmm. And so I have those talks all the time, and I'm sure they get tired, of hearing it, and don't think that because I'm saying this, everything that I did growing up was perfect. Not even close. You're
evolving
close.
As a person.
Exactly. Yeah, but you start to see, and so if you're gonna preach it, now you got to live it, right? Now you got to take that apart yourself, or you're a big hypocrite, and you don't want to be that either. Yeah, you're exactly right. You do those things, and so you can push those things.
I know one thing that when we would walk into the room, the paw up on the wrestling room, and it's like if somebody saw you not touch it, they're calling you out. Yeah. But then it's those people that are accountable, like, oh, I forgot to touch it, and then they'd go back because you had to read the whole thing.
Yep.
It's like if you don't touch the paw, dude, then it doesn't matter if you're going in and out 10 times. You just have to reach up and touch it real quick. But it was like an instinct thing that you guys instilled, like, this is one thing that you can be perfect at.
Yep.
And if you're not, then what are you doing?
Yeah. Don't step in here if you're not going to commit, right? It's funny you mentioned the paw because they still slap that. Like even when we go do abs and the wrestlers that are in my class, and other kids will go, oh, you're supposed to touch the paw, and so they touch it.
And they touch, and they get in the instinct.
Like, hey, what are you doing?
Did you read it?
Yeah, exactly. Did you know what that says?
That was definitely one thing that stuck. Like a lot of the lessons that I've had wrestling, it's definitely stuck. Like I tried to find a gym that had a wrestling room because I just wanted. That's the one sport that I've missed doing.
That's what Pierce says too.
And like I love football, but I wasn't in love with football like I was wrestling, just because it's all you on the mat. Yep. It's all you, and it's just a mental game. Like, it's literally just a gladiator sport.
Yeah.
Can I beat the crap out of this guy?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm glad that it's not like knives and right. anything, you know what I mean?
Not to the death.
But like, it's one of those things, like, I'm glad I had you guys pushing me through my life to where I'm at now. Cause like, I don't miss. Like, I'm trying to go out of my way to do these extra ones for it, because we're doing 2 shows, and then I'm doing this on top of it, trying to get my mind broadened. Obviously, me and you've had these deeper conversations, but not like this. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I was gonna ask you another thing too. Is the night that me, Pierce, and Kanoa lost, what was going through your guys' heads for that state finals?
Honestly, more than anything else, feel for you guys. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not, oh, God damn, these guys. I wasn't mad at all. It's not anger. It's, God, man, these guys put in so much work. Because you deserve it, but that's one of life's biggest lessons, right? You don't always get what you deserve.
Yep.
But you do the work anyway, right? So if I told you you're going to bust your ass all season long, Kaiser, you're going to make it to the state championship, but you're going to lose, would you change the way you worked out that year? You know, or would you
That's a tough one,
I know,
dude.
right?
That's a tough one.
It is, and so. There's no promises, right? You know, you guys did everything right. You know, you guys did everything right. You wrestled at an early age. You committed. You did all the little things. You busted your butts in practices, and you make it to the state championship, which is fantastic either way. Like if I would have told you in 6th grade you're going to make it to the championship match your senior year.
That's what Starkey told me. He's like, I'd never expected you to be here.
And you'd say, okay, I'll take, you know, even if it's second, I'll take, okay, you know, because it's a great accomplishment. When I told Pierce that, I go, Pierce, you can't be disappointed. I go, if I would have told you, you know, when you were a little kid that you were going to be a 4-time state finalist and a 2-time champion and blah blah blah, and you know, 4-time district champion, and he goes, I'd take it. Right. That sounds fantastic to me. I go, it is, you know, so don't ever take away from what you did. Second at state is phenomenal. You know, there people celebrate making it to state.
Yeah.
You know, I made it to state, and then they're happy, and then they're 0-2, but they made it to state, and you guys made it to the championship of state.
Yep.
You know, and I'm sure there were some state champions that you beat along the lines, you know, that you wrestled here and there and that you beat. So, but honestly, you feel so bad for your wrestlers because you know how they feel.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know exactly because I didn't make it to a state championship, but I've lost big matches, and I know how it feels, and unfortunately, it dwells on you a little too long.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you said, the wins last. You know, the high of a win in wrestling is unmatched. It's unparalleled. Because I've won in lots of sports, and I've been successful in lots of sports that I've played. But winning in wrestling, that feeling, even as a coach, you know, you wake up that next day and you're just so jacked that you know, as a team you did so well, and but you feel so bad for you guys because you didn't get what you wanted, you know, and you deserved it. Now, if you didn't deserve it, I go, well, he
didn't deserve it.
Yeah, could have done this, could have done that, but I didn't. But that's not the case with you guys. You know, all three of you wrestled well, and just, you know, I told Pierce, I go, you just had an off day, had a bad time, and I think a lot of time, you know, people like you mentioned earlier, the pressure. Right, of expecting to, everybody expects you to win. That's I don't know what that feels like, but it's got to be miserable.
Well, know? Like it wasn't. I would say that there was more pressure on us to win as a team, than it was to win individually. Like obviously, you have the tough guys, like the guys that need to, Pierce, Kanoa, Hunter. You throw that because Hunter was a phenomenal wrestler.
Yep.
I would even put like Harden in that discussion. And then I'll throw myself in it because I was expected to win, but obviously there's those matches where you just get the crap kicked out of you, dude. There's those kids that should not be at 3A when they should be at 5A, kind of thing. But it's like there's those people that are expected to win. When you don't win, it's like, what is going on with you right now? But I think we were more expected to win as a team in all of our duels or tournaments or anything. Because what did we place as a team our senior year? Like third. What was it our sophomore year when Tanner and Pierce won it? Did
third
we
again.
Third?
Yeah.
Because then we didn't place the other 2 years then, right? Junior and freshman year. I don't think we had. No. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. So
I don't think so.
I know that Mountain Home was always one of the teams that just expected to win.
Yeah, we just never got to like if you took that same team and wrestled the next year, you would have killed it. It wouldn't have been close. You guys would have been state champions. So it's just how you match up. It's the same thing happened to Knutson's group that I told you about.
Yep.
And how solid those guys were. We had the worst Friday night semifinals that you've ever seen. I want to say 7 guys.
Oh my gosh.
One guy won. Corey Andrews is the only one that won that night, and he didn't get any accolades because we were all so depressed about. I felt terrible because he won, and we're all down.
Did he win the whole?
No, he ended up taking second.
Oh, okay.
But he made it to the finals. But those wins is what kept us from winning the whole thing.
Wow.
Those losses kept us from winning the whole thing. But it's just God, sometimes you have a bad night, right? And it's easy for me to look back and say that now, but then I was like, oh God, how do I fix this? So it doesn't happen again. And so that's why, I mentioned earlier that I did not coach anymore. That kind of stuff would not leave me alone.
Would you ever not be able to fall asleep because
absolutely.
of stuff like that?
I'm on medication to this day to turn my mind off at night. So I can, because the wheels just spin. How do I fix it? How do I fix it? How do I fix it? Because I'm competitive, right? And so when you guys win, I win. But consequently, when you lose, I lose, right? So it's not like it doesn't bother me. I go home and I'm fine. It wasn't me to lie. It absolutely feels like I lost.
That's crazy. I've never had talked to somebody that was a coach that had it go through their head like that.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah.
I never knew how long ago did you have to get onto that?
When I think I started it when Pierce was 10, because there were some matches that I had Tiffany go to when he was a little kid because I worry so much about it. So my anxiety was through the roof, and so she'd go with him and coach him up, and then call me and tell me how it was, which is not proud of.
Yeah.
but like I said, I have the mindset where if it's broken, I gotta fix it. And how do I fix it? And like I said, when you guys win, the coaches win. We're ecstatic for you and happy. It's not like we're saying, yeah, it's because I taught you that 3/4 stack. No wrestler has ever come back to me and say, hey man, I really appreciate you teaching me this double leg, this front quarter, this stack. It was all about the bus rides and the van fights and
I hated those
and the camps and it was that's what they talk about. So that's their and finally I thought when that started happening, as some of my older wrestlers got older, and that's the things that they talk to me, and then I shifted my mindset to go, so those are the things that are important.
The van fights were not important.
Can you imagine if they were van fought nowadays?
Oh my
People
gosh!
just throw fits if we even talked about what went on in those vans. But that's what even Mr. Sessions, he came up to me a couple years ago and he goes, "I'm so glad my kids grew up with you guys when everybody was okay doing that and everybody loved it, the van fights and all the beatdowns and all that." He goes, "My kids talk about it all the time. They absolutely loved it, and it's their best memories." And he goes, "I can't imagine now where you're not allowed to do.
You can't do anything now.
No, and it's one of the reasons I don't that I'm not that interested in coaching anymore, because you can't just be free to have a good time. You're walking on pins and needles.
Dude, you kicked the crap out of us before and after practice. I remember. I think I was just your TA, and there was one time where you just looked at me like, you know what, dude, and you kicked the crap out of me in athletic fitness in the weight room just in front of everybody. And I remember I was trying to just roll you over, but dude, your frame, you would not go, and you were in your feet were in the air, but you would not go. Yeah. And I'm like, what do I have to do? I always thought that you guys went to a class on how to kick the crap out of everybody, dude.
All the little when people, so the wrestlers will then when I see them and they're with their wives or something, and they'll start talking about that, and the wives are looking at them like, how are you? One wife asked me, "How are you not in jail?" I'm like, because the rapport that you have with kids is is beyond that, and once I figured that out, that it's about rapport and not W's, then it got a little bit. My perspective changed, and I started going, okay, I'm still competitive, and I still I'm still trying to win, but a big part of this is them enjoying the process, right? Because how fun would it be even if you won state, but you didn't enjoy the process and your memory of wrestling was bad?
Yeah, for sure.
Then we'd be talking about something different right now. You probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
you wouldn't choose to come talk to me if that was if it was a
if I just didn't like
if it was a bad aspect
for sure.
So once that happened, and I start talking to those older wrestlers, and it wasn't about who we beat or what they did or what they accomplished or or what we accomplished as a team. It was now they would talk about team more than individual.
Oh, that's how you have to.
Yeah,
that's how you have to do it.
About we smoked so many duels. I remember one time with Knutson's group, we went to the Centennial Duels, and it was the first year we went there for. And so it's all a bunch of the 5A school, all the big schools, and we're wrestling. I think it's Mountain View or somebody, and we 3/4 stacked 8 out of the 15 people.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and that coach was just going bananas. He's like, "Oh my God! If one more person gets stacked, I'm gonna." He was, and he was a good coach too. Like he's one of those guys that's been around forever, but he couldn't believe that we were hitting it on so many of them.
Well, the stack was one of the things that Mountain Home was really known for, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like even like what, back to when you were wrestling or even before that?
Yeah. So if you go in my office, there's 3 or 4 pictures of me wrestling, and they're stacking people.
Wow.
Because it's a finisher. Right.
If you get in it, you're done. Yeah. If you get out of it, right. I don't even know, dude.
You're double jointed or super flexible.
Yeah.
Or the ref didn't get in position in time. But yeah, and so you guys, even you as a big guy,
I tried it. I definitely tried it.
Yeah. I can remember going into gymnasiums and seeing the teams warming up and work, and then they would circle. You circle up and show stuff. They would. I can't tell you how many times I saw them going over the stack and how to defend it.
Oh my gosh!
Specifically the stack,
But there's so many different ways to get into it. So it's like even if you defend this way, it's going to leave you vulnerable.
That's what you started developing those other things. They go like if they watch TV, we're doing this. If they sit on their side, we're doing this. If they lay down, we're doing this. And so it opened up a bunch of things. But it was nice having something that they feared a little bit. Well,
because it was always in our back pocket.
Yep.
It didn't matter what size, because obviously, like as when I was wrestling heavyweight, you guys would tell me just stay in your lane, but I'd always I'd leg ride, do whatever I could to be a little guy.
Right, but it was entertaining. Yours was not boring heavyweight push pull matches. Remember your Granby rolls out of stuff, and
every year the senior year state the state matches always pop up. I'm always posting them, but I always hear everybody yell, do the roll when I'm on bottom and I roll out of it.
Yep.
That was probably my favorite move, just because it was an easy 1 point.
Right.
Every time, nobody could defend it. I don't know why. I don't know how.
They've never had to defend a heavyweight Granby and out of something.
Yeah.
It's just usually stand up or and use their size to power up. But yeah, you're an athletic heavyweight, which
I appreciate that.
It was fun to watch. You and Ortiz both. We had a great heavyweight streak there.
It was even before then, because Chung Hee was there.
Yeah,
and he went down to 220 for districts or whatever. But even before that, I don't think there was like a lot of heavyweights though throughout that are even up on that board. No, to be honest,
there's not. I can only think of you and Ortiz that have.
I know Blake is up there. Blake is.
Oh, Ferris.
Yep. He's a state final.
I didn't think of him because he was a super small heavyweight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was just right.
I actually have met him outside of in my personal life, being
really?
Out of high school. He's actually a very good human being.
Oh, fantastic!
It's one thing that I've thought of, oh, he's a really good guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've always cherished about the wrestling aspect is you can be anybody can be a dickhead, but off the mat is that's when you can go make friends.
Oh yeah.
I always remember the little guys hated each other outside of the mat and on the mat, but then the heavyweights or the higher weights, we're all buddy, but then once we get on the mat, it's like, okay, we're all business.
Right.
I don't know why.
You gotta learn to flip the switch. I think heavyweight wise, there, especially when you're younger, there's a lot few of them. There's a lot few of them. There's very few big guys that wrestled when they were young. It's because it's a little guy sport at that time, because the little guys are doing it because maybe they're too small for football. So a lot of the big guys were, and so you didn't have
a lot of the big guys
numbers.
played football.
Yeah, so your numbers weren't that big, and so the group that you guys had usually kind of, there was so few of you that you kind of chum up and talk, and but like you said, you knew how to flip the switch, and so why not? If as long as you know how to flip the switch and know it's go time, then you're fine. But if you went out there with a thought, man, I like this guy, I don't think I should.
Nah, hell no.
No.
Because I know that if that happened and one of you guys realized what was happening, it'd be a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to install that with my little brother right now, because he's the nicest kid.
Is he?
Nicest kid you'll ever meet. And then he has that same thing on the mat. And I'm just like I said, I'm up in the stands and I'm like, dude, you have, like in my head, I'm like, you have to flip the switch.
Yep.
You have to be a killer on the mat. I'm not saying go kill him, but you have to know to take him out and do what you have to do.
Right. And you're right, because that's completely different. If you're not flipping that switch, I had that talk with Pierce 100 times. I go. Unfortunately, when you step out there, you got to be a little bit of a dick, And I know it sounds terrible, but you have to get your mean on, because he's gonna. And the more physical that you are, and I told you guys a million times, I go, I'm not talking dirty or cheap.
Physical. That was the one thing you always instilled was don't be dirty.
Not dirty, not cheap, but physical. And if somebody bangs you, bang them back.
Yep.
Don't just go, don't get rocked and take it. I'll hammer them back. And if you get dinged for it, I'll stand up and say, hey, warn them both. I got your back. But yeah, and he will. If he wrestles, he'll learn. One day he'll have a match and go, oh shit, there's I got to get my mean on.
Yeah. I wish that I was working I wish I still lived here for that aspect, just to be able to go to more of his stuff.
Right.
Because I'm 45 minutes away roughly, and it's like to drive down here to get the last half of it.
Right,
it's not worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that like you said, if I have a kid or when I have kids, it's going to be completely different in my eyes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But if there's one thing you can tell the audience that to go through their life and how to be a champion, what would that be?
The little things.
Not even just like a champion, like a state finalist, but just a champion in your own life.
Yeah. And that's a great question. You can't pin it down to one thing, but if I had to, it would be your character. So character is a combination of your thoughts and your actions, right? So you can't just act like a champion and act like you're doing the right things. It has to be your thought process. I'm going to be the best person that I can be in every aspect. I'm not gonna walk by a piece of garbage that's laying next to the garbage can without picking it up and throwing it away. And I do that constantly.
It could be anywhere. It could be anywhere.
Yeah, it can be anywhere. And it doesn't matter that no one sees that. It has nothing to do with it. A champion does the right thing at the right time, regardless of who's watching. And so if you want to live like that, it's tough, because there's no day off from it, right? You can't be a weekend where you're just a complete dick to people, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be times that you butt heads and you clash. So you're not. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you have to strive to be perfect. Does that make sense?
For sure.
And I'm still working on that. You work on it all the time. There's so many times that I go home that I go, oh, God damn, I could have handled that differently with that kid. And sometimes it's so much that the next morning I'll immediately send a note to the office to go get that kid, whatever class he's in, and bring him to me so I can fix it.
Okay.
So I can have a conversation, because I don't believe, maybe I said something that I thought was funny that maybe hurt his feelings or and because you don't. Sometimes you think you're funny and you're not, and sometimes you think you're joking, but they may not be, or it rubs them the wrong way. I tell everybody all the time, if I could have one wish, it'd be for a crystal ball that could show me every student's home life, right? Because then I would treat them accordingly.
Do you think you would have treated them differently though?
Accordingly.
Accordingly. Okay.
Yeah. So there's say you have a kid in class that's always late and doesn't bring their clothes, and it might be that kid just sleeping in. He has he has both parents and there's no excuse, and he's just sleeping in and he forgets his clothes because he's lazy. Or it might be that kid, the only place to sleep is on the couch because his older brother and wife have his bedroom, and this is a situation that happened. And so now this kid is on the couch, and so he doesn't he doesn't even have access to his closet or his bedroom or his clothes or his anything. And so he doesn't even really have an alarm clock out there. And so they have all these different situations, and if you knew those things, you'd talk to them differently, and you'd figure it out differently instead of go, that's another zero. Where's your clothes? You didn't dress down again. It's so you see it as just them not caring or trying, when it might not be their choice.
You've always been the one to hear somebody out too, on a circumstance or a situation that's arise, and if you know it's BS, you're like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
But if it's not, and I know you've gone out of your way to even ask and talk to the parents, like, what's going on, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's something I appreciate of you doing that. I don't even think you ever really had to do that for me, because it was like you knew how I grew up or whatever. But
right. but we could have any conversation though.
Exactly.
Just like we are today. I mean, it wasn't any different then. And I gave you as hard a time as I've given anybody, right? But knowing that you could absolutely take it, and so, but there's some people that you think can, and then you find out later that they can't, and you're like, I screwed that one up, But you want to find out the story. Like for instance, this just happened. Had a girl that big old glasses, dressed in all, kind of frumpy, and was always late to my class.
I've never heard that word before. Frumpy.
Oh, really?
Never heard that word before. What is the definition of that word?
Just, just like she doesn't care.
Oh, okay.
Just whatever throws on, pajama bottoms or, whatever. And what irritated me is that she would skip my class, because I can go in and I can check the attendance and see that there were other classes and didn't go to mine. And so I give them a 0 for the day instead of an absence. Well, they're still marked absent, but in my grade book, it's a 0. It's worse than not dressing down. You just chose not to come. And then I get a call from one of the administrators, and it's at the end of the 9 weeks, and so we have 9 more weeks. And he said, "Hey, is there, this girl's a senior. Is there any way she can pass?" And I go, "Man, she doesn't care. She doesn't dress down, and she doesn't. She skips my class as much as she can." He goes, "I get it." He goes, "But what you got to know is, she was in here earlier, and she was talking about her home life, and she asked, she's only allowed meals at certain times, and if she misses those, she can't make them up."
What?
He said she has to ask for anything at all that she eats or drinks. Her dad is blah blah blah, and her mom is blah, and I'm like, God, jeez. And he goes,
kind of made you take a step back a little bit.
Yep. And I'm just like, yeah. I said, I tell you what, I'll change her. It was like a 30%. I go, I'll change that to a 58. So she's right below passing. So for the 9 weeks, I said, but it gives her a great opportunity to do better the next 9 weeks and still get a B or C maybe. And so I said, I'll talk to her and tell her I'm making her a deal. And so a couple weeks ago, I took her in, and I said, I didn't mention anything about the home life. I go, the skipping's killing you. I go, you got to be here, And she's cute, she's sweet. She has, like I said, the big, and she's just so innocent looking. And I'm picturing the parents being mean. And I'm like, how are you mean to this girl? But anyway, I go, if you're perfect, if you do everything right, I go, and I'm not looking for you to be an athlete in this class, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I grade everybody according to who you are, and everybody has their own. I got rules for this person. I got standards for this person. I got a way to do things for this person. But it takes me time to see where they fit, right, in my grading scale. So I told her, I said, if you show up every day, quit skipping, and because she was like, when she was there, she would work out. She wouldn't try to avoid things or skip things. It's just when she missed the whole class. And so I finally I said I'll make sure that you get this credit and you're able to graduate. But you got to make me that. And so she goes, okay, sounds good. And so she's been there every day.
It's just one of those talks that need to be done.
Yep.
How much? Obviously, you said you're the same person, home life, coaching, teacher. What do you think is the hardest part about being the face, like having the same face in all of it?
I think that people think I'm too picky about, because athletes understand it, right? And my family gets it because they know who I am. So it's those kids that haven't been around that
The
kind
teacher
of person.
aspect of it.
Yeah, the teacher aspect of it. Some people don't understand it. Why is he so strict on these things, and why is he? I just signed up to lift some weights, and I'm getting this workout regiment that I know exactly. I have a calendar in there that shows every single day. There's 2 groups, A and B, and it shows you where you are and what you're doing for the entire semester on a calendar. So it even tells you your reps and percentages when you're doing your bench, clean, and squat. So every single day, because it's a percentage of their maxes. So everything's written out for you. So they don't understand the why that I'm like that until some of them never get it, right? Because they
don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't care, then you're not going to understand. But slowly they understand the why behind it. And now, because of that, because of the way I do things, man, it just runs itself. Honestly, I can take attendance and have my TAs lead the agilities, and the kids. And I don't even have to be in the gym if I'm still in my office and I come out. Now I do see them shift gears when I come out.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You can see them shift gears when I come out, which is a good thing, right? Because now they know my expectation, and so now I know they're like, oh, there he is, and so you can see a shift, but they know what's expected. Like the other day, I was going to be gone. I go, you guys, I'm going to be gone for 2 days because I got sick with some kidney stones, and I said I had a surgery thing, and so I said, and you know what, the sub is probably going to suck. I said that because I had some real bad. I had one that stayed in my office while the kids were in the weight room.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said. On their phone.
Oh my gosh.
In my office on their phone while the kids were in the weight room. I said they're probably not going to be good. They don't know what to do. I go, but you do. I go, you know exactly what to do, and so do my TAs. So that's my expectation. And Hans, the custodian Hans.
Yep.
So he watches my classes like when I'm gone.
That's a good dude for you, man. He's been there forever too.
Yeah. He was one of my students.
Oh, really?
He gave me more crap. He'd sing the Oompa Loompa song as he's running around, and I'd make him run laps, and he'd sing it anyway. But yeah,
that's awesome.
But he gives me reports, and he goes, your classes and your TAs. He goes, the class wasn't perfect. He goes, but for having a sub, he goes, you'd have been happy. So I was real glad about
those are the little victories that you can have for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was just like, oh yeah, because I told them you do know what to do, and they do. And I think one of the things that I do well, not trying to compliment myself at all.
You deserve it though.
But,
you deserve it.
But I think the rapport thing that we talked about earlier, if you figure that part out with anybody, right? And so now you have a mutual respect. So like I tell them day one, I said, you always hear that respect has to be earned. How many times have you heard that? 100 times.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't think so. I said, I think you automatically give it, and it's theirs to lose. Right?
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, complete stranger. You automatically give it, and then if they jack it up, that's on them.
Yep.
And then my respect's gone. And so I think they take that in, and they understand, because when they're in my office, I let them talk about whatever they want, and if I don't get, they use.
I've heard some shit in there.
Oh yeah, me too. And I pretend, and if it crosses the line, I pretend like that I don't hear it. Like so I let them be them.
Oh gosh.
And they're good with me too, because if they say some slang that I don't understand, I'm like, hey, what's that mean? And they'll break it down for me and tell me exactly.
Go through like like a year.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're so good to me. They tell me exactly, oh, this means this and this. But I think and so every day when they leave, I'm like, all right, have a good day. And now constantly people coming through my office after they undress, they can go, through the other door, but they always come through my office. Hey, have a good day, Maris. Have a good day. Hey, have a good weekend. Have a
Yep.
which I think is just cool. I love that part about it.
It's like a rite of passage to go out your office.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever since I was in athletic fitness, I always went out that door.
Right.
Unless I'm just having a bad day, then it's like, all right, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm not gonna talk to nobody.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, you have those, right? And so I don't want anybody that listens to this think that I'm anywhere near golden, because you're not. But as you go on and you get older, like you said, what did you figure out as you went on? And those are the kind of things you figured out that those relationships and the rapport that you build, and you can't. That is the most important thing, because if you do that, then you can build everything on top of that without getting on them and yelling at them and screaming at them. I might yell once a year, if that.
I don't think I've ever seen you really yell.
But if you do it right, you don't need to.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So,
do you think being a teacher might be one of the most important jobs? You think? Obviously, there's levels to it,
right,
like being a doctor, being construction, doing whatever. But I think, in my honest opinion, I think being a teacher might be one of the hardest jobs, because you have to deal with 30 personalities per class, and you have five classes.
Yeah, it's not like college where you get a certain kind of kid, right? You have them all, but it's not hard. It's just different, right? And so it's hard when you first start, because you're figuring everything out. You figure all that stuff out that we just talked about. And so you slowly, every year it gets a little bit easier because you figure stuff out. And then you get that curve like that him telling me about that girl. And I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
I hope I don't blow that one. But as far as being hard, it's not hard if you make adjustments, if you know that you're not, every year I do. Every year I make adjustments. And if you're not, you're making a mistake. You're making it harder on yourself.
How long do you think it took when you started that it clicked for you? Like, this is a way I could do it different. Like, it obviously took a few years then, right?
Yeah, because you're young. And so you're more relatable with them, which isn't necessarily a good thing. I like that I don't know all their slang, and they explain it to me.
I don't even understand the slang, and I'm a young guy.
Or they show me their new music or their tattoo, and I like all that stuff. When you're younger, I think you know how you talked about earlier with the military and I'm the man. I think you have a little bit more of that of, I'm the guy now. I got to be a certain way, and you realize that you just got to be you. And the kids relate to that so much more than they do somebody pointing down and
drilling them the whole time. Yep, I agree with that.
Exactly. I mean, you still hold them accountable. You still have them do exactly what you need them to do. You still get on them when you have to, but it's the way you do those things, I think, separates you. But you talk about teaching as a profession. What's cool about it is it's the only profession that everybody has a favorite of that, right?
Like a favorite teacher?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you think of any other profession? You don't have a favorite fireman. Even if it's a favorite singer, you don't know that singer.
Yep.
You don't know what they're really like. The kids know what you're like.
Yep.
And everybody that I've ever talked to has a favorite. Even that real quiet kid or that kid that hates everybody.
It's the one that listens. It's the one that listens to him.
There's somebody that's their favorite teacher. And that teacher might not even know it. But isn't that cool to think about that's the only profession that I can think of?
When that happens, though, and you find out, like, what does that do for you?
It makes you realize that you have to be weary that you might be that person's guy.
Okay.
You might be their guy, and you're like you're short with them, right? Because they're not doing the right thing all the time, or they're not doing what they're supposed to, and so you're a little bit short with them. But if you thought, man, but if you knew, say you knew you were their favorite, you would treat them a little different, right? Because you appreciate the fact that you're their favorite, and so you would do it a little bit different instead of being so short with them or being that. And so you might be, there's plenty of kids that you think, oh, I got to be their favorite. They come in and talk to me every day, and they go out of their way to give me a high five or whatever, but and you might not be. There might be somebody, they might do that to every single teacher, but there's I don't think there's anybody that has gone through the school system that can't look back and go, okay, yeah, that dude was my favorite, or I love that lady, or and so I think that's the coolest part.
I never thought about that, like that. There's not. I mean, obviously, you could have like say somebody, like an accident happens and a cop helps somebody, that could be your favorite cop,
right?
But then they're going to give you a ticket the next day because you're doing something wrong.
And do you really know them?
Exactly.
These guys, they know you. They might have spent the last 4 years with you, but at least a semester. That's quite. So they know you, and they still knowing you, seeing your good and bad, because you have good and bad days as teachers. I tell people, everybody has their bad days. I let them know. Let me know when you have one. I'll treat you, I'll treat you accordingly.
Yep.
So if you're not doing as well as you normally do, I'll know, hey, it's just a bad day for them. But yeah, you might be their favorite, and so you would do it a little bit different. So that's what you got to have in the back of your mind when you're getting on somebody about not doing something, and you can feel your tone and delivery is off, right? Because you're tired of it.
Yep, for sure.
Just like, or you just had 3 people tell you, like, the worst part about my job is people telling me that they're sick or injured, constant. They come through my office and they're coughing, or they're doing,
my leg hurts.
It's every day, and so I get callous to it, and I shouldn't be, because some are legit injured, right?
Yep.
And so if they're legit injured, I'm like, okay, whatever, but it's so much that you have to make yourself go, okay. You got to treat each case a little, individually, instead of grouped up all these people that, and there's some that just do it because they want to get out of what we're doing, right? Because it's hard. The class is hard,
If you give it your full effort, yes, it's going to be a tough class.
Yeah.
If you just coast, though, it's gonna be like any other class.
Yep.
But you've set it up to where if you fail, it's going to be on your own accord.
Yep.
So, like, going through like the program of doing weightlifting, but then the wrestling aspect, the Tabata was probably the worst aspect of any workout.
Absolutely.
And that was dreadful.
Yeah.
As a big boy, it sucked.
I can't imagine strapping on a 50-pound backpack and doing what we were doing,
Oh my gosh.
I go through it and I do them, and I minimize it for me. Like if we're doing squat jumps, I'm maybe this high off the ground, or I'm minimizing, trying to, so I can make it through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the big guys, there's no. They don't say, okay, big guys, but you do this.
Yeah.
Right?
No, everybody's doing the same thing.
It's everything. We still do. So I do cardio on our long. So Tuesday and Wednesday at the high school are our long days. And we do some kind of cardio on those. So we do Tabatas in the winter, and the people flipping. Most of them they
can't handle it.
But because there's no escape, right? There's no place to hide. Right?
Not in the
wrestling room.
Yeah.
And we do them in the wrestling room. There's no place to hide. So you got to go for that 8 minutes. You got to go. And we're done. And they're dripping sweat after 8 minutes of those Tabatas. And so they work. And so, but now they know they can. Right now they know what it feels like to push, because most of them don't know what that feels like.
Yep.
Wrestlers do.
Yep.
Wrestlers absolutely do fit in what
the 8 minutes is easy to them.
And so they learn that aspect of getting out of the comfort zone. I talk about that all the time in my classes. You got to push out of the hardest thing in the world to do is push yourself. Like if you were to go upstairs and do a Tabata, it would be a paced one.
Yeah. Right now, yeah.
Right.
It would take a little bit to get into.
But if you were with your wrestlers and a coach was leading it, you can't pace yourself.
Yeah, you have to go balls to the wall.
You got to go, and so you're gonna be uncomfortable. But it should feel good when you're done. wrestling, you should look back at wrestling and go, it's an accomplishment. You know, a lot of people don't make it through, especially now. That's one of my main reason that I stopped coaching is I hate putting time into people to have them quit. You know, because it takes time to teach a new guy to catch them up, right? With just stance and motion, you know, and the positions in the score. You're teaching them, and so you're investing time into them at your practices, and then they're done. They're out, and their parents are okay with it because now I don't got to pick them up from practice. Now I don't have to go see them, you know, spend a whole weekend watching them or whatever the case may be.
Which it sucks because it's like that was one thing my dad always told me was if you quit one thing, you're going to quit the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's 10 years down the line. If it gets hard, you're going to quit.
Yep.
And that was one thing. He said, you're never going to quit when you start something.
Yeah.
The only thing I ever probably stopped doing was baseball after junior high because I didn't enjoy it after that.
I think most kids play baseball at a younger age, and it seems like that's the one that most stop playing.
It's junior high
baseball. They
stop playing total. Okay.
Like I think the most like when they're little
T-ball.
Yeah, yep. I think almost every kid is in there, right? And then by the time they get to high school, it really weeds itself out. I don't know why, but it does. But you said I stopped playing. That's not right in the middle of somebody's
No,
season.
I finished out the season, did everything I had to do.
Completely different, you know. I tell people all the time, I go, you're not a wrestler if you didn't make it through a season.
Yeah,
you know, and
for sure.
You know, if you want to call yourself a wrestler, you got to stick it out. You know, and then the rest of your life you can. And you're
I
proud
finished
of it,
a year.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a wrestler, you're proud, and you like people to know that. You know, when they ask if you wrestle, you say it with a little pride, and you have a smile on your face, and you're like, absolutely, I'm a wrestler. And there's a little bit of respect garnished automatically because you're a wrestler.
Just from the people in my home because they know, like I have my siblings or whatever. They because obviously my name's up on the wall, and my little brother, he's like, dude, your name's up there. I'm like, dude, if you bust, if you do what you have to do, your name will be up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like something like I hope that those little words right there just kind of fuel the flame. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things. I had something else I was gonna ask. I can't remember what it is though. Oh yeah, I remember my senior year when it was about to be the wrestling season. And I was trying to play basketball at the same time. Why wasn't I able to do that? Curious wise.
What do you mean?
Because I was gonna do everything wrestling wise, and then if there was a game after the practice for a basketball game, I was just gonna go and set screens or do something.
Like on the basketball team?
Yeah. Do they not let a kid do the same sport in the same time frame, or two different sports?
Your coaches would have to be okay with sharing you, but the hard part about that is other people are going to see that, and maybe you're good enough to start on the basketball team, but when you're not there and they're doing all these things, and then you show up game wise, then they
like favoritism kind of thing.
They see that and go, what the heck?
Yeah,
you know. And so I think that's the only aspect that, you know, there's some kids that do like track and baseball before. And it's because track is like it's individual, but you're not working with a team to get better. It's completely individual. You don't need teammates. Basketball you do, and so you
I guess the chemistry wouldn't have been there.
Exactly. You want to develop that and that. And I think it's just a bad look.
I was always messing around with Bethel. I was like, dude, I'll go out and play point guard. I'll go set some screens. I'll do whatever. I'll go to all my practices and do what I got to do, and then I'll go help you guys.
Yeah.
But that was one thing I was trying to. I always like had in my back of my head. I was like, why wasn't I able to do both?
Right.
And still, obviously, wrestling would have taken precedent over everything. Like if we had a tournament, I'm going to that. If there was a basketball tournament, whatever.
And I think we just didn't want to fight about where's Kaiser.
Yeah.
You know, if it did come up, he's got a game, or you know.
I think if myself would have pushed more on it, I think it might have happened, but I was just more messing around than anything.
Right.
But I don't know. I always thought it was funny, but because like you have like the football team, and then a soccer player would come and kick field goals. Obviously, that's completely separate from
Right.
it, but it's like he's not at none of the practices.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah, and if he's the kicker, he's probably not taking somebody else's spot. Too.
Exactly.
You
Yep.
know, and that's the hard part is if you're taking someone else's spot and you're not there full time. That'd be the only thing that I can really think of that would be the biggest, barrier.
You got anything else then?
No, man. We talked about everything and way more than I even thought we would. A little bit of everything, right? But all good stuff.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day for
I'm
this.
super proud of what you're doing. And,
I appreciate it.
And I loved having you through high school and junior high wrestling. That relationship. I'll never forget it. And I'll always I'll always be here if you ever want to bounce anything off me.
I appreciate it.
When you become a parent or.
I think what I met you when I was like 6, 7 years old or something like that. So yeah, like 18 years I've known you.
That's crazy.
It's honestly insane that like I think the bond was stronger because of like going through wrestling and obviously being in the same class as Pierce. So it just kind of fueled it a little bit more. Like I remember when we were walking the stage and you were the first person that came up after, because you're obviously a teacher,
right.
and you're walking up, and I'm walking on the stage. You're like, "Come here," and you like run up to me or whatever. Yeah. But that was one thing that really like was nice about that day was you were the first person after I got the diploma to be like,
that,
"Yep,
absolutely, yeah." My wrestlers are important.
Yep,
they really are. And it's so nice to see them grow up and have families and be successful in whatever they're doing, and be good people at the end of the day, because so many of them are even if they were, walking the line in high school, they usually end up being good people, and I contribute that to the wrestling, It really
obviously we spend a
shape
majority on that aspect of it, but it's really one of those aspects of life that is more than just wrestling,
right?
Because you guys taught us so many life lessons just in that 8 years or whatever, 6 years that I wrestled. But it's like, it's a blessing more than anything.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, I get just as much from you guys as you've ever gotten from me. So
I appreciate you. Well, I'll cue the outro.
Cup full of something that'll knock you on your ass. Got the quarter wrap like I'm boasting with the sack. Got cheddar on my head when I touch down with the pack. Finna hit you like the bus and I'm about to steal it back.
Yeah.